All right, let's talk about it. The $1 million retirement. It's this number that gets thrown around all the time, right? Kind of feels like the ultimate benchmark for financial success. But what's the real story there? Today, we're going to unpack the myth versus the actual reality of hitting that massive milestone.
I'm sure you've heard this a million times. Maybe you've even said it yourself. And yeah, with inflation and the cost of literally everything going up, it's so easy to feel like seven figures has lost its punch. It's a common feeling, for sure, but it really only tells part of the story. So, if $1 million is supposed to be the new standard, you'd think a whole lot of people would be hitting that mark, wouldn't you? Well, let's actually dig into the data because I think the answer is going to surprise you.
Okay, so first, let's get into this whole idea of the $1 million myth. You see stock prices going up, home values going up over the years. It just feels like it should be easier than ever to get to seven figures. But there's a pretty big catch. And this is the paradox, isn't it? Even as our investments might be doing well, so are our bills. The cost of rent, food, healthcare, you name it. It all puts a huge squeeze on our ability to actually put money away. So while it might seem easier on paper, the day-to-day reality makes saving a real grind. So, enough about how it feels. Let's get to the cold, hard numbers and see what's actually happening out there. Welcome to what I like to call the 3% Club. Now, before I drop the big number, it's super important we're all on the same page. When we talk about this, we're talking about liquid retirement accounts. Think 401ks, IRAs. We're not including stuff like the equity in your house, because you can't exactly pay for groceries with your living room, right? This keeps it an apples-to-apples comparison.
And here it is. According to the Federal Reserve, only 3.2% of retired U.S. households have $1 million or more in these accounts. Let that sink in. That's like 3 out of every 100 households. And remember, that's households, which often includes married couples combining their savings.
This chart just lays it bare, doesn't it? When you see that tiny little 3.2% bar next to that massive 96.8% bar, wow, it just puts into perspective how rare this achievement really is. It is far from common.
And to really hammer home just how big of a deal $1 million is, let's look at the median. The typical U.S. household, we're talking across all age groups here, has just $87,000 saved for retirement. That means half of all households have even less than that.
Now, you might think, okay, but that's everybody. What about people getting close to retirement? Well, the gap is still huge. Even for households in their late 50s and early 60s, the median balance is only around $185,000. And at that point, you just don't have a lot of time left for compounding to do its thing.
So, despite what you might hear, having $1 million is clearly a big deal. But what does it actually get you? What kind of lifestyle can it support once you stop working? Let's break it down. Okay, so a classic rule of thumb for retirees is what's called the 4% guideline. Basically, it suggests you can safely pull out 4% of your portfolio every year and have a very high chance of not running out of money. So for a $1 million portfolio, that gives you a baseline of $40,000 a year. But here's where it gets really powerful. That 40 grand isn't the whole picture, not even close. When you add in the average Social Security benefit, a single retiree's income jumps up to $64,000. And for a couple where both get benefits, that total could easily hit $88,000 a year. All of a sudden, that's a very comfortable income. And that kind of money can absolutely provide a comfortable lifestyle. The real key, the game changer, is managing your biggest expenses. I mean, think about it. If your mortgage is paid off by the time you retire, an income of 60 to 80 grand a year goes a very long way. It covers your needs and leaves room for travel, for hobbies, for peace of mind.
So, we know it's rare, we know it's valuable, but how in the world does anyone actually get there? Well, it's not about some lucky stock pick or a windfall. It's about a long, steady journey powered by the magic of compounding. You see, the path to $1 million isn't a straight line. It kind of happens in 3 phases. First, there's the foundation. This is where it feels like you're doing all the work. Progress is painfully slow. Then you hit the middle years. It's a grind where your contributions and the market growth are about 50-50. But then you hit the tipping point. That's when the growth of your investments starts adding more than you are, and things just accelerate like crazy.
And this explains exactly why. Early on, a 10% return on $50,000 is $5 grand. It doesn't feel like it's moving the needle much.
But later on, that same 10% return on a $500,000 portfolio adds a massive $50,000, and you didn't have to lift a finger for it. The math is the same, but the base your money is growing from is just so much bigger. You know, when it comes down to it, reaching this milestone isn't just about the number you see on your statement. It's about what that number actually represents. It represents all the choices, the discipline, and ultimately, the freedom it buys you. The people who actually get there, they tend to have a certain mindset. It's about practicing delayed gratification. It's about ignoring that social pressure to keep up with the Joneses. It's about consistently saving and investing, month in and month out, even when the market is terrifying. It's about deciding what success means to you, not what it means to everyone else. And that's the real heart of it. $1 million retirement isn't some lottery win. It's the sum total of hundreds, maybe thousands of small, smart choices, little sacrifices, and disciplined habits that just stack up year after year. That's why it's so rare, and that's why it's still such a powerful, meaningful achievement. So all of this really leaves us with a final thought. It all starts with one decision at a time. So looking at your own life, your own journey, what's the next small choice you can make for your future?